Hello, hello! This is sort of an update video that will be followed by an art gripe, which is to say that I'm going to try to jam these updates into a normal video so that we end up with a video that's 5 hours long. No, I'm just kidding. The update portion of this should surely only be a mere 40 minutes. No, surely not. A mere 20 minutes long, how about that? It might be 20 minutes long, I'm serious. Alright, so let's just try to get through this as quickly as I possibly can. Alright, so update video. Uh, I've actually been working on the latest animation, and I sort of stopped that and thought, well, recently due to the troubles that have been going around, I thought, well, it'd be good to have another video here at the end of December, so I'll just put my actual work on pause for that. So to that end, I decided to do an art gripe, which will be after this. But for the time being, you see that the Scary Lesson girls are before you. I will be talking more about that in a second, because that's going to be the subject matter of this video, sort of, art gripe and whatnot. But for the time being, I would mention the best friends debacle, that has been in the air as of late. The last medley video came out before all that actually went down, so there was no mentioning it, of course. My stance on that, and I only mention this because so much of my own fan base is relative to them, obviously, because that's where I got my start, along with many other things. My general stance on that is good for them, and that's what it was. Like, I did not have a weepy, oh god, because I mentioned that because a lot of people did. A lot of viewers treated it as, oh no, my internet parents are getting divorced, which was kind of strange. Like, I sort of expected it, but it was more than I thought it was going to be. But my general response to that is, of course, good for them. Because if you are forced to work with people that you're not overly fond of being around for various reasons, then that can exacerbate itself and become much worse over time. So the best thing to do in those situations is usually just to distance yourself to where, especially around money or anything regarding business or things that you're being forced to do. Because that's the worst sort of thing that you can craft in your life, is this feeling of inescapable dread regarding other people. So, good for them. That is my answer to that. This is a good situation, whether or not it is good for viewership on YouTube. I will attempt to fill the gap to some extent, but I can't do that because, LPs and whatnot. So, one thing that I was actually considering doing is doing an LP. Did that sound hypocritical, what I just did? I can't do LPs. I have no time for that. So I was considering an LP. Yeah, it sort of was. I was considering an LP mainly because I've just wanted to do one for a while. But of course, my LPs take absolutely forever. I have not had time because of everything else, my own troubles and animation and whatnot. Swear was good enough on Twitter to give me a key to the missing, which I have not played yet. I don't really know anything about it. But I've been considering doing that. I looked up how much time it takes to actually beat it. It's not that long. But even then, I've really been trying to hammer this animation, get it out as fast as I possibly can. But I still really don't have the time or the energy to be able to devote to too many things at the same time. So there's that. I might do it in the future, may not. I don't know. One thing I've been considering doing, and I mentioned this last year, and I think I even sent out a January email on Patreon about it, was I was considering getting rid of Patreon rewards entirely, in terms of drawings, anyways. I really don't know what to give as Patreon rewards other than that, which is kind of the problem for me. But I've been considering removing those for, like, all year long, and throughout the entire year, I've been going back and forth with it, because I don't want to. Because on one hand, I really don't like the idea of just give me money, you stupid fucking chodes, give me money. Like, I don't want to be like that. I want to actually do something, but the time it takes to be able to do this sort of work is just, it's astronomical compared to other things. So, and the thing about, like, what do I do? Do I upload progress videos of me doing the drawing? Because that's what this is. It's a normal product. Do I upload the primary of the drawing? Because you can see it as I'm drawing it. Like you can see what I'm coming from. Like, it's hard to come up with ideas for these sorts of things. So I've considered removing them because it's been eating up so much time. Like I actually tried recording this video once before, and it went on to be 20 minutes long. But during the process of even doing that, I got like 3 new Patreon messages about doing drawings or people asking for things. Like it drives me crazy. And you can even hear me during streams on Twitch or whatever, uh, commenting on, well, there's another one. Like they don't stop. They just don't stop. So I've been considering just moving the tiers up. Like right now, it's $20. Like it's $20 a month for the sketch and $50 a month for the color. Which I thought at the time, well, that's crazy. No one's going to pick these. But then they did, which drove me crazy because people would just sit in the slot, and I would tell them, you only have to do this 1 month, then you can leave the slot forever if you wanted to. And I would much prefer you just donate $1 or $5 or whatever you want to a month for a long time, because it helps me in terms of, like, it widens the amount of time that you spend being aware of me. Like it creates what they call retention, like YouTube retention or whatever retention, market retention. It makes you more aware that I'm still existing, whereas you just plop down a $50 bill one time and then leave. That doesn't really help. Like, you get what I'm saying. So maybe I'll make a new crazier like $100 a month thing and that's where I'll put the colors, just to make sure people please do not take it. Like, I hate the idea of even making one, but like my time is also valuable, and I just don't have the time to work on things, and that does drive me crazy. So to that end, I've been working on the game that I was talking about last year. I know a lot of people got really excited. Oh, I'll help play. I got a bunch of messages, and I still have all that contact information if you're wondering. But the amount of time that it would actually take me, maybe I'll actually show some of this as briefly as I can. Yeah, so this is like what I've been working on. I'm not working on script, but it's mainly just like dialogue and things like that. All right, get rid of that. Don't want to leak too much. But I've basically been just writing the script and trying to format it for Renpy so that if I give it off to someone that does code and has the time to do that, then it will already be pre-formatted so that they don't have to drive themselves crazy trying to figure out how to format it for a game. So I've been working with that and trying to just develop that as fast as I can. But again, time. I don't have the time, especially with all this other stuff. The thing about developing a game is that really that's something that you should be doing as a career. Like, that's something you should be doing full time. And I can't do that because I'm doing this, like the YouTube thing. And if I stop doing YouTube to do this other project that may or may not even work, I don't know, then that would be really bad, because whenever I'm gone for months at a time, I notice my Patreon stuff goes way down very quickly as people forget that I exist. And that's not good, because that's the nature of this work. And if you want to hear more about failure, you can go check out Wooly's podcast that he's been doing. Not only because that's what he's talking about, but because I was also on it. I was on the first episode. He did one recently because of, again, the troubles. In regards to anxiety, which you should check out, because I'm sure some of you have anxiety as well. Not only because of the troubles, but because, Christmas time, holiday time. Ooh, progressive. Holiday time. So I will also... I may not even be allowed to say it, but I'll just say it. There's more of those coming up. We've already recorded some of them, so I'll be on that again and then again. And I assume that I will probably be on some in the future, but we have not talked about it yet. So, like, 2 more for sure will come up eventually at some point or another. So you can check that out too. That's another update. The animation itself that I've been working on. The animation itself I'm working on, I'm right smack here. This one little sequence is not done yet. But as you can tell, I'm about 1,200 or so frames in out of a 4,000 or so frame animation. I've only been working on this about 2 to 3 weeks, I think. I lose track of time, so it may have been a month. I don't know. Like, I lose track of time so easily. But that's what I've been working on. You can probably guess what it's going to be about. Yeah, so that's. I've been going at a blistering pace in regards to the animation. Like, for me. Like, especially considering I'm doing most of this frame by frame. The fact that I've gotten as far in as I can, I'm still not good at it. I'm still not good at it. I made the. By the way, the Dark Souls in summary video, my most famous video, uh, finally got taken over by a music industry bot. So it's now monetized and is being stolen and sublimated for their purposes. I filed a complaint because of the way that YouTube's system works. That's probably not going to matter. Um, I'll briefly explain that the problem in regards to YouTube, which you probably have heard before, is that large corporations hire people or hire people to make bots that will just go around manually flagging things that like vaguely sound like something that they own technically. Like there's people that famously will make a remix of a song and then they will claim the original song on YouTube from the original creator and make, the $50 a month or whatever it is off that video. Uh, that video that has millions of hits. And they'll just steal it. And YouTube won't do anything about it because this is some behind the curtains sort of information that people may not know. But the way that the copyright claim system works is that you will get a claim from one of these criminals, is what they are. And it will say, oh, this person has claimed your video. It's actually theirs because of this like 10-second long clip, which is that's what happened with the Dark Souls in summary thing. The little Guinevere scene has a Van Halen song in it that's 10 seconds long, which is fair use, but of course YouTube doesn't care, and certainly the manual claim bot does not care either. But it claims it sends you a message, then you can go dispute it and say, no, this is fair use, and then you send it off. But no one at YouTube looks at that. It's just the bot dealing with it. So the bot will send the person that claimed it a message saying, hey, they said it's not actually yours. At that point, they get the opportunity to say, nah, it totally is mine. Wink, wink. And at that point, you're told, no, they said that it's theirs. So it's theirs now. You could take them to actual real-world court over it if you wanted to. And technically, that's where YouTube ends. It's like, well, go to court over it, stupid. But it's a video that's probably going to make like $2 a month or something for most people. And how much money would it take to go to court? Lots and lots of money. So therefore, there's no reason to even bother because it's a major corporation stealing your content. What are you going to do? Like, take them to court and they're going to be like, oh, shucks, I'm out $5,000. Whoops, fell out of my pocket. Oh, well, back to stealing content from hundreds of thousands of people. Like, you see the problem. That's the issue with YouTube right now, is that it's not even really the issue with YouTube, it's an issue with the DMCA system being completely outdated. But that's an entirely different subject. So, you see where all this is coming from. But that got claimed recently. That's another update thing. I can't remember why I brought it up, but I thought I would. So yeah, animation stuff, all that's all my updates, I guess. This video is going to be about depression and anxiety for obvious reasons. Like I mentioned all that, I've been doing this long enough that those things don't really bother me exactly. I got that message about the in summary thing. And briefly, I had this feeling of, oh, fuck this, not again. And then it kind of just went away, and now it's gone. Like, now I don't care. I actually considered just deleting the video off YouTube just because a big fuck you. Oh, I mentioned that because I went back and looked at that video. And I thought, wow, the animation in this is absolutely horrendous. Because, like I said, I've been working on this animation, and I'm still not great. But, ooh, I've come a long way. Same with my drawings. Oh, that's another update, I'm sorry. I recently uploaded the vast majority of my art, well, not even that, a lot of my arts to Newgrounds. Because of the Tumblr troubles that they've been having in regards to Verizon and Yahoo. Basically, like months prior to this, deciding we're going to make it a family-friendly thing so that it can make lots of money off cell phones because the app, that's where that comes from. Um, as a result, Tumblr now, at least for me, it depends on what your feed is more or less a ghost town. Like, you go there and there's just no one there. Like, it's just dead. I moved on, and now I'm uploading all my stuff to DeviantArt again, if it's a big enough thing, and Newgrounds. So that's where you can find me. I was going through and looking at all the stuff from like 2000, and like I have my drawings from like 2009 or 8 all the way up to now, whenever I first started doing digital work. Actually, before that, I was scanning things in. I used a scanner. I drew them on paper and then scanned them in. Those are all terrible, though. I was looking through all those and I was thinking, wow, my drawings are absolutely ass. This drawing is ass. This video is going to be longer than 20 minutes. And it wasn't until like the end of 2016 where I felt like, well, that one's kind of okay, I guess. And even through most of 2017, like, ugh, I can't believe I was still doing this. And even now, like what I'm drawing now, not now, but what I'm going to be drawing now, I'm still in a place where I feel like I'm not where I should be. So I'm sure in 2 years' time I'll be like, ooh, I'm still doing that. All the stuff from 2017 is terrible. It's going to be like that again. So, ooh. But this video is going to be about that sort of thing. Self-criticism, depression, and so on. So, the scary lessons thing, if you remember, you've been staring at this the whole time, but the whole concept of the scary lessons girl was originally the sort of fan content about Ghoul School, which was sort of a thing for a while, took off. And I liked enough of the general premise that I sort of appropriated it, and some of the characters, repurposed them, redesigned them very heavily, and came up with something that's completely original, which me and Wooly talk about in our videos, by the way. More so in the later ones that you have not heard yet. So I guess wait for those. It comes out whenever it comes out. So to that end, I have a whole host of new characters, a setting. It's not a school, but the land that it's on is called Evero, or actually its actual name would be Eferol, or Eframarol, which would be Old English for like ever or more, and silence, rest. I'm very fond of doing this. So it'd be basically like eternal rest, Evero. And that's where it takes place. It's like out in the mountains somewhere. Hint, hint, it might be somewhere in the Appalachians. And the general premise, of course, is that it's sort of a prep school. It's not really a school. It doesn't grade you or anything. But it's just something where, like, they bring in young people to sort of get them used to living adult lives. Like, it's just sort of a prep school in that sense. But again, I did the comic about this before, and I'll show like a couple pages of that off. But that's the premise, and the premise of the game that I'm trying to work on is you're actually a guy. I really wanted it to be like you could be a guy or a girl, but there's too much dialogue that hinges on it, and I didn't want to have to flag like he, she, him, her, over and over and over again throughout the entire script. So I decided, well, I'll just pick one. And I thought, well, the fact that he's a guy would probably be a little bit funnier for most of these circumstances anyways. So that's what I went with. Not overly happy about it, but, it's a decision that I had to make. If I had a whole team working for me and I could just crack the whip and, like, beat them, like, savagely, like, really hard, and then just make them do it, then, it'd be great, You shouldn't say that. To that end, I wanted to go over some of the characters and sort of give you an idea of my general thought process behind them, because I was actually going through and looking at my characters and thinking, which one of these would make a good subject matter for the concept of depression or anxiety? Because a lot of them actually sort of stem from that, because they are young people, and most young people problems sort of orient around, like, not knowing who you are and, depression, anxiety, dealing with the world around you, not really understanding it, not really understanding yourself. So most of them sort of are like this. But in the crux of the game, it's not like a visual novel thing where you're going in and you meet the characters and they're like, fix my problems, main character, and then you fix their problems. Because most of them are like that, like especially like dating games or something. And this is not a dating game, by the way. But in the context of mine, I decided, you know what? They've already gotten past most of their problems. And they're sort of dealing with the aftershocks of the problems that they've been dealing with. So they've discovered, oh, this is who I am. This is how I deal with the problems that I had whenever I was 13, 14, 15. Now I'm older, and I still have those problems, but this is how I've been dealing with them. So they're sort of in that state. So I'm going to go down the list and try to talk as briefly as I can, considering we're 20 minutes in. I knew this was I knew it would happen. Okay, but here are the characters. All right, Nen. This is Nen. She's like a little Sphinx girl. Her original design was, of course, that I've talked about this before, but I started out doing various, like, here's a stereotypical monster, let me try to make a monster girl out of her. Like, I did this in October of last year, and it came out with that design. People weren't too fond of it, so then I came up with this design. This one, everyone's like, oh, give me that. They really like that one, so that's what we did. And that's Nan. Her general thing is that she's a very general personality. She has low self-confidence. She's uncertain about her life choices and directions. The only sort of real disorder that she has exactly would be sort of general depression and splitting thought disorder. You can look that up if you want to. She just has general problems with confidence. And she has sort of resolved that with like getting confidence boosts from others and getting honest general encouragement and having constructive criticism and more appropriately actually having lots of minor life successes that she can draw confidence from. So that's her. Raha over here, the sort of Anubis girl, golden wolf, I guess, is what she actually is. Her thing is that she deals with OCD. I actually did a lot of research in designing the personalities of these characters, but she has a lot of problems with, again, you can look this stuff up, synthetic thoughts, which is basically whenever someone has, like, violent or dark or disturbing thoughts in their head that they realize that's not theirs. Like, they aren't actually thinking them. It's... how do I explain this? But it's basically like you are you, but sometimes your mind will wander and just start constructing these... It's like having a hallucination, except it's in your mind. It's your thoughts. It's like a hallucination of the thoughts, I guess. Where you don't have a choice in the matter. Your brain just, like, wanders in. It's like, hey, what about this ultra-violent thing? And you're over there in your, like, actual mind, like, yourself, and you're thinking, whoa, what are you doing? Like, I don't want to think about that stuff. And this sort of... that's a gross approximation, but that's generally what synthetic thoughts are. So she sort of struggles with that, and she has come to an understanding that it is genetic, it's not actually her, and trying to find ways of distancing herself from that with, both medication and actually changing her lifestyle and whatnot. And by the way, this is not, like, overly dramatic. You don't walk into the characters and they're like, all right, here's my medical conditions. Like, you're actually interacting with them as people. It's just that this is, like, background stuff that they deal with. Like an actual person. Kiara, who is not here. Kiara, she's the appropriated version of Sabella from Ghoul School. I changed her completely, so she's no longer even relatively the same. She's this little dark-skinned vampire girl. She's asocial. She enjoys isolation. Sometimes she likes being around pets, that sort of thing. She's a very macabre person, which tends to alienate her from other people around her. She gets really anxious in social situations. Like, she's like this. It stems from emotional neglect from her mother and her father leaving their family at a somewhat early age. She feels unworthy of relationships, and she's kind of just like this. She enjoys isolating herself. She has a general feeling of, like, self-loathing. but she sort of moved past this by the time that you actually run into her. She is looking into becoming a doctor or an undertaker or something that is sort of laterally will bring her into contact with people, but she doesn't have to focus too much on it. But she's very much so interested in the medical field, and that's the reason why she interacts with her teacher Penny here, who's a Northern British fairy. Which I won't go into her thing because she's not a student, but you get the idea. Ashlyn is my sheet ghost. Everyone loves sheet ghost. I think she was by far the most popular design out of all of them. I decided that she's actually a child of a banshee and what's the male version? The male version of a succubus, incubus. An incubus and a banshee had a child, and she is a rare case of them actually mixing together and producing an entirely new kind of monster. So that's what she is. She's very shy, doesn't really talk that much. She's very self-critical, but she's not critical at all of other people. So that's kind of her thing, is that she would never accuse you of having flaws, but she'll look at herself and think about her flaws constantly. But she loves to sing and she loves music, and whenever she actually sings, then all of her actual personality comes out. That's where she can actually be herself. So that's her thing. Moon is a little moth girl over here, American monster. She's very dependent. She needs to be around other people. She feels extremely isolated whenever she's alone at all. She sees other people as being very capable, but she's overly reliant on adults or teachers or other authority figures. Whenever she has to go through some sort of evaluation or testing or any sort of judgment from an authority figure at all, she sort of breaks down and gets really nervous about it. She feels compelled to keep everyone together, make sure that no one's arguing or anything like that. She's one of those people. She gets really stressed out if there's any hint at all of any sort of dissension or breakup of the group. But she's sort of moved past that now. She's just trying to learn to not be so dependent. So to that end, she's trying to learn things like how to pay rent, how to pay utilities, like maintaining a banking account, and just being an adult, like doing adult things, because she wasn't taught that enough in school. One of those things. Winry, of course, everyone knows Winry. The evolution of Winnie from Ghoul School. Now she looks nothing like her, actually. You probably already know enough about her. I'm not going to spend too much on her, but she's very much so a tom girl. She fears being seen as weak. She doesn't like being seen as being weak, having weaknesses at all. She's sort of like a Nen in the sense that she isn't totally sure what to do with her life in the future because she doesn't have any real interests that she can imagine would lead her into an actual career field. So she's sort of panicking in that regard, but she doesn't like to talk about it because, again, she's very much so locked up inside herself and putting on this air of being invulnerable. So that's who she is. Marin here, she's actually of Mexican descent. I think she's second generation immigrant. So her name should have rolling R's, but I can't do that. I don't know. Anytime that I talk to someone that actually has can speak Spanish natively, they're like, "Oh, it's so easy. You just do this," and then they do it. No, it's not. And then we get into an arguing match about R's, which we don't. But But her name should be rolling R's, but I can't do it. So Marin is what her name is. Her thing, she doesn't really have any overt issues so much as she has no connection at all to music or art or anything that isn't just work. She's very much so just, I want to work. That's what I should be doing right now. Sort of like how I am right now with animation. I wake up, I've been very exhausted and had a lot of headaches and vitamin deficiencies and things lately because I've been waking up and just rolling over into this chair and working, which is the reason why I've been making so much progress in the animation, is because I don't have a life beyond that. That's all I've been doing. I've been working and nothing else. So she's sort of like that. She doesn't really have any hobbies or interests. She hasn't really grown as a person beyond the fact that she just has a job. because her whole family is like that. She comes from a family of construction people, like just construction workers essentially, not like hard hat construction workers in the city, but people that are contracted to perform construction. That's what I mean. So she's someone that feels like she's been missing out on all these other life experiences. She's aware of the fact that she's like this, and she comes across as being very abrasive to other people as a result. So she kind of has this air of being an asshole, but she really doesn't want that to be the case. She's just so locked in on, just being industrious and not have anything beyond that she struggles to connect with other people, that sort of thing. Yuri is the last one. She's my appropriation of Phantasma from Ghoul School. I've not developed her as much. I'm not really sure if this is going to be her final thing or not. I wanted her to look sort of the same, but not overtly be the same character at all. I'm probably going to change a lot of her design, but this is like the only drawing of her that I have so far in her most recent incarnation. But I do know what her personality is, and she's a Japanese ghost, third generation American. She's a very nosy person, fun-loving, cheerful, kind of perverted in her own weird ways. Not like overtly sexually perverted, but she's just kind of perverse. She is alive. She's not a ghost necessarily, but it's the way that monsters work in this setting. Is there are monsters, and then there are like scions. There's like normal humans that have inherited the traits of monsters, and now they're classified as being monsters, but they're not. Like Winry, for example, is a werewolf person, but she's not a werewolf. She doesn't transform back and forth. She gets sort of a little bit more wild and feral when the moon comes out, but otherwise she's completely the same. She doesn't really turn back into a human, or maybe she will in the game. Who knows? If I can ever get to. But the same thing with Yuri. She is a person. She's a living person, but she has like ghostly abilities as a result. Her whole thing is she doesn't really take life seriously as an adult. Is very much focused on just having fun. She's not really materialistic, but she just really is so compelled to seek out her own enjoyment in life that she has a hard time sort of grounding herself, which is appropriate because she's always flying. It's a thing. It's a character thing. So her focus on like promised fun from experiences is like she's been trying to redirect that towards an adult life. So she's focusing on trying to aim towards careers that will allow her to have that enjoyment from life that she wants. That's the source of her ambition as an adult, or what she's trying to grow into. So there we go. And of course, like this is Kay. She's a Kumiho. She's one of the teachers. I already mentioned Penny, and this is Sonura. She's South African, immigrated to America, and Lolo. She's not a teacher, but she's sort of an advisory thing. She sort of hangs out around the area, and also I already have an art gripe of her on this, but Wisa, the Talipo girl. Was that from 2017? I guess it was. I didn't have this preloaded. Well, but it was, Talipo. There we go, okay. But Wesa the Talipo. She's a groundskeeper. She once was a part of the school, but dropped out, as it were. Like, she can't really drop out. It's a school where you don't have to do any homework. You're entirely encouraged to be self-motivating. You're not graded. It's not like an accredited school or anything. But she eventually just stopped doing it and decided to just take up local work. She's a local. She lives in the mountains, along with her family. So that's all the characters. So whenever I was going through and thinking about all these characters that would be good for a video about the concept of depression or anxiety or struggling in these trying times of losing your YouTube parents, that sort of thing, I decided to actually go with Nen. And I decided to go with Nen because the other ones have sort of similar issues. My actual top three were Nen, Raha, and Kiara. Over here, Kiara. I haven't really done enough with her yet, although I really like her design. I decided I liked her a lot. I just haven't been able to do anything with her yet. Um, because the other two were more particular kinds of struggles, whereas Nan is way more generalistic, sort of just a typical young person. So I decided to go roll with her. Um, Also, she's probably next to the Sheet Ghost Ashlyn here. She's probably the most popular. People really love the fact that her hair covers her eyes. They're absolutely obsessed with her because of that reason. I think that's what it actually is. Oh, and her little snake guy here, snake lady, I should say, down here is Nan. This is Nen and Nan, or Nanners, or Bonanza, or whatever you want to call her little name. So that's who the art gripe today is going to be about. Now that we have finally gotten to that portion. So, all that said, take it away, future me. It's a me, Eli. I'll go ahead and get some basic information about the drawing out of the way as quickly as possible. The idea for doing this one, if you're gonna get to the end and wonder, oh, is he not done yet? Yes, I'm done. But the general idea behind this one is that I wanted to do something where a lot of the drawing is very sketchy looking, but the character was more finalized, and as you get further out from the character, then it sort of becomes more desaturated until it just becomes a sketch. So that was the aim of the actual process or whatever itself. So if you start wondering what I'm doing, that's what I'm doing. Oh. I have a massive headache right now. Oh, trying to do things too quickly and trying to stuff too much effort into a small amount of time frame will do that to you. But I'm not depressed. I'm just in a general state of unease and anger. Oh, I get that way. If I start working too much, I don't really get tired so much as I start getting, like, angry at nothing. Not angry at people, I just, like, start... You ever get that way? You just start getting this general sense of... just that. Just all the time. That gets really bad if I'm streaming, and I've been streaming for, like, 3 hours or something. Because the way... Especially if you're animating or doing something that requires a very intense amount of concentration. I've mentioned this before, but there's a big difference between physical work, manual labor, and creative work or any sort of mental work. They're two very different kinds of exhaustion. Because obviously I've done both. I feel like I'm repeating myself. I've mentioned this many times before. And yes, the snake does have a sweater. And also the snake has a little hat. Ta-da! So, you see. I've done both, obviously farm work and all that. I've had many jobs, I've realized. Of course, all the farm work, of course, whenever I was a kid, which I was never paid for. By the way, if you have kids, make sure that they have some money. Make sure that they... Like, even, like, the idea of an allowance, whenever I was growing up, it's like, oh, it's stupid, people getting an allowance for doing nothing. Like, give them an allowance for doing things, like working in some capacity. Don't give them allowances for nothing. Like, make them do something. Like, I'm telling you how to raise your kids. I will never have children. Like, I have no chance at all of meeting someone and actually having children, especially at my age. But I will tell you how to raise yours. But I do think it's a good idea to actually give kids money to some degree whenever they're younger, because it does teach them how to, like, save money and handle their money and saving for it, things like that. Me, I didn't get allowance, but I was given like $2 or something to be able to buy like snacks whenever I wasn't given a meal, which was most of the time whenever I went to school. So eventually I sort of learned, well, I have like no money at all. What I can do is just not buy a drink today, and I'll just keep saving it. So that was my first experience with trying to deal with money. Actually, my first experience trying to deal with money was actually fourth grade, third grade. Our teacher had us set up a little bank account that used money, like fake money that she would give us out in class, and we had to write checks and things like that. Actually, glad that I had to do that. I think it was like it's not something that I really vividly remember. Like, oh yeah, that taught me so much. It's more this. I enjoyed. I like knowing that I had the experience of doing it, and I think a lot of like childhood experiences are like that, where it's not an important memory so much as it just establishes a concept to you enough that you are used to thinking about it, or you have a framework for it. And a lot of growing up is very important to have that, just to not be knowledgeable about something, but to be exposed to it and to be aware that it exists and to know the process of like thinking about it, like knowing how you're supposed to evaluate it. That's very, very useful. So if you have any kids, make sure that they have a little bit of money and establish why they're getting the money and what they should be doing with it. That way, whenever, as I'm sure kids would do, the moment that they run out and immediately spend it on garbage, then they'll quickly learn, oh, well, I still want things, but I can't have them. How do I fix that? And, just get them to think about it themselves. This has been Life Lessons with Eli, telling you how to raise your children. Because you don't know how to. But I do, because I don't have children. Signed, everyone that has ever not had children. Okay, but why did I get off on that? I don't remember why I got off on that, but um, I guess it's appropriate though, because this video is supposed to be about the concept of like depression, anxiety, and things like that. I was talking about a general state of unease whenever I'm working. Oh yeah, work. That's what it is. I've had a lot of jobs. That's what it was. The farm work. I didn't get paid for any of it. I was just there, which is bad. That like I think that's kind of bad because the farm work was mostly just my dad saying, "Just follow me around, just look at me doing stuff." And that was even then I knew, oh, that's code for he doesn't know what to do, and he's just being lazy, and he just wants me to just walk around and just assumes, well, maybe he'll learn something or something. And as I'm older now, I realized I was completely right. That's exactly what he was doing, and he didn't know what he was doing. He didn't have a plan because he just wanted to do his job and not. He didn't really give a shit whether I knew anything or not. I was not raised well, by the way. I was not raised well at all. So my first job, I guess, technically would be. My mom worked for this government agency. It's not like Area 51 or anything. Just it's a government thing. And I just raked leaves for them. And I did that at the end of school before I went home and did actual work. So that was technically my first job, I guess. I've delivered and made pizzas, which at the time I was being hired on to be a team leader. This is not my second job or anything. I'm just naming them off as they come to my head. I did that for a while, even though I was hired on to be a team leader, but then I quickly realized, oh, he just wanted a dishwasher, and he just lied. I didn't have that job for long, because I've mentioned before how I've had, like, managers that I've hated, and, like, I had this associative thing with a very specific kind of woman that looks a certain way and acts a certain way that I detest, and that stems from an experience at that job. Like, I realized, like, I'm not hating women, just I had a bad experience with one kind of person. So whenever I see someone that looks that way and acts that way, I'm like, ooh. Like, this is the kind of person that... There was one time I used a pitcher or whatever, a container to hold water, because I just needed some water to pour into something. So I poured it full of water, emptied it out, and put it back. And they immediately stormed over, what the fuck are you doing? Like that. And they wanted me to wash out the container that I just used because I put water inside of it. And I turned to her and it's like, you want me to wash out the container that had water inside of it for a few seconds, that had nothing else in it, with water? And she, yeah, you could tell that she realized that she's an idiot, but because she's fucking stupid, it like, she also in her head, like, this is what Dunning Kruger is, the effect. Like, she realizes, oh, I'm fucking stupid, I'm being a dumbass, but at the same time, she's very arrogant and entitled. So in her mind, she's like, well, I can't be stupid. So I forget what her dumbass excuse was after that, but it's like, well, just fucking do it. Or no, actually, she said, don't do it. She's like, well, whatever, just don't do it again, or it was something like that. Some cop out thing where she can't admit that she was wrong, and because she would be admitting, oh, that was really stupid what I did. What I just told you to do makes absolutely no sense on any level. She couldn't do that, so she just like, well, I'm still right, and I fucking hate people like that now. I despise them. Anyways, but that was that job. I did line work for quite a while, like manufacturing things. I was a team leader at that job. I was a graphic designer for a while, of course. That was what I did before I started the YouTube thing. Did data entry work. Let's see. I worked making benches and did graphic design work for them as well, now that I'm thinking about it. But it's primarily assembly and things like that. Worked marketing, like trying to do like low-level marketing, like pamphlets and stuff like that. Worked for the college. There's several other jobs that I've done, but I kind of get them mixed up with stuff I didn't get paid for, so I can't really think about them too well. It's been a while, too, and I have a bad memory. But yeah, I had jobs. I worked at a grocery store for a while. That was another mainline thing. I think that was actually my first, like, steady job, working at a grocery. Also did delivery runs for another job. But yeah, I've done a lot of things. None of those experiences were good. Like, every experience I've ever had doing adult work has been absolutely miserable. And by the way, here you can see in my sketch work here, contrary to how I usually work, I'm actually concentrating here on not finishing my strokes, like leaving big open gaps and just focusing on like where light and dark are sort of meeting, because I decided, you know what, I'm giving up on the idea of lassoing areas to fill with color. I'll just do that by hand. And it ends up working out a little bit better, so just look for that, I guess. But I haven't really been happy doing any work at all until I actually started doing art-related stuff. And if I had to go back to the normal like work sector now, I don't know what I would do, because I really hate work like that to this day. One thing that sort of sums it up for me is whenever I was in college, I was doing some. I think it wasn't a project; it wasn't work-related. Yeah, it was a project where I was having to design a. It was just a poster for something. I can sort of remember what it looked like, but it was like, here's a project, you have to design something to market it. So just do whatever you want to. And I produced something that had some sort of comedic element to it. It's sort of similar to how I would work online. And I gave that over, and the teacher's like, this is pretty funny. Like, how come you never make anything like this? And I said, well, because this is work related. I'm not gonna, like, I'm doing this because it's just some dumb college project. But as far as work goes, I would never do something like that. And of course the response was, why? And I realized I've always been that way in regards to all forms of work. That when it comes to interpersonal relationships, when it comes to work itself, I draw a clear division between my normal life and what I do professionally. So whenever I'm around people in a quote-unquote ordinary work environment, then I sort of shut off my actual personality and just do what I need to do. And that kind of drives me insane, because that's not who I am. Like, I need to actually be invested in the thing that I'm doing, or else... Because there's not much else to my life. Like, I do the things, like, now I do what I do, but back then I worked and went home and had a few hours to myself where I could be myself, and then it was just hours the next day of pretending to be someone that I'm not. That sort of thing. Like, just trying to be normal and in an environment where I'm nothing like anyone else. Because you guys know more or less what my personality is like. This isn't like I worked in Kentucky and Tennessee. I've never had any other jobs in any other states, but all the people here are like in Tennessee. There's a lot more sort of hickish stuff going on, where everyone is obsessed with country music and hunting for deer and things like that. In Kentucky, it's way more subdued. Like, as soon as you hit the line, the state line, it sort of tones down. And it becomes more just... People sort of have my inflection almost. I don't really sound like a typical Kentuckian exactly, but it's still sort of there. But there's not much... There isn't much of the accent and things like that. I did run into... I was going through Walmart and I saw some girl, like, shopping nearby. And I sort of had a brief, like, look over. It's like, oh, she's kind of cute. Then I went back to what I was doing. And she was walking past, and then I think her boyfriend or something turned the corner. And immediately she says, "Wiggle down, down, down." It was something like that. Barely intelligible. And I immediately thought, oh, yeah. Some people like that that actually exist. This is like a stereotypical Kentuckian that I'm running into. And then her boyfriend opened his mouth. He's like, and he's like, have you ever had someone's voice hit your ear, and you immediately know he is dumb as a rock? Like, this guy is fucking stupid. I got that. Like, I really hate to be judgmental of people. I'm very anti that, but yeah, ooh, it was rough. Heard that voice, was like, wow, that's some rough goings right there. But you get the idea. In Kentucky, there's a range of people, but I am not really in that range. I'm a little bit too weird. I'm way out there in regards to what is considered to be publicly acceptable. This is not a large city where you just run into weird people constantly, and you're like, oh, this is me. I'm a weirdo in this way. In this area, it is more, you need to act exactly like this, and if you want to be strange about something, even remotely, you do it behind closed doors. Because this is a very, I guess, Christian puritanical sort of area. Like, it obviously, in any area like this, not everyone is like that, and even when people purport to be that way, they really aren't, that sort of thing. But it's very much so a constricted, you are not allowed to be yourself sort of area. That's what I mean. So combine that with the fact that you're having to work, it really does just drive you crazy. You cannot be yourself. You can't open up and actually be something more than that. Unless you're just, I love country music, I want to watch football and talk about Dancing with the Stars the next day at work or something. Because, there was a lot of people I interacted with day to day that were exactly like that. And that's all they were. They just woke up, argued with their husband, went to work on the line the next day, smoked a whole carton of cigarettes as they gossiped about one another, and talked about a TV show they saw on NBC the night before, and then they went home and went to bed. And that's their lives. Like, that's all they are. So, I think there's so many people that are like that they just don't have anything else. Like, people wonder, where do conspiracy theorists and stuff come from? I know, because my dad is like that. It's just that their lives are so, like, empty of, like, this is my major accomplishment. I was knighted by the Queen, or, something like it. They don't have anything like that. Maybe they peaked in high school. There's lots of people like that. And they just never developed into anything else, so they just don't have anything else. So, this idea that you know something the rest of the world doesn't, you're unique, you're special, you're smarter than everyone else because you know the truth, but they're too stupid to realize that they're buying into the lie. That's where conspiracy theorists come from. They don't actually believe necessarily that the earth is flat or that, a Xenu exists or whatever stupid shit that is. They don't believe that, but they need to believe it because that's their out. That's how they have awareness over society. That's how they make themselves unique. That's their identifier. That's what makes them a person. Especially whenever you get older and older and that's all you have left. Some people try to live their lives for their kids. Some try to get involved in politics and push some crazy thing that they know will never actually happen because this is how things should be, and that's their solution. Some people are conspiracy theorists. You just don't know. But I think a lot of people are like that. They just don't have anything. They never develop themselves. So the only thing they have left is to just be crazy about something. So whenever I develop things like this scary lessons thing, the thing I think about the most is how do you get a young person to like plant the seeds for the person that they will eventually become? Because it's easy to just go through school, hang out with your friends, think I sort of like video games, I guess. I like watching TV. And then you get out of it, and then there's just nothing else for you on the other side. Because you are nothing. Because kids have their personalities, but they don't have a personality. They don't have self-identity yet. Because they just can't. They're like 16, 18 or whatever, even like people in their early 20s, don't have a cohesive understanding of this is me, these are my limits, because I understand them now. This is who I am. These are the things that I like. Here are the avenues that I can potentially go down to expand myself even further, but these are the other ones that I don't want any part of. Like, it's hard to explain. Whenever you get older and older, it becomes way more established who you are as a person. So even in regards to something like dating or something, you get really, whenever you're young, you're just like, oh, they look physically appealing, I guess. Good enough, let's get to know them. Whereas whenever you are in your 30s, it's more like you read their profile or whatever you're doing, and you see, I like to go hiking. What's a stereotypical girl profile? Like, I'm a high-energy person that loves new experiences and loves to go on adventures. Message me if you also are an outdoors person and loves to, that loves country music and going hiking or something. It's some generic bullshit like that women love to put on their profiles. And no one's actually really like that. They have more to them than that, but that's a very safe profile entry. But you read that, and if you're someone like me especially, then you're gonna go, whoa, no. We will never get along. Because you know exactly what kind of person you are, and you know, nope, not gonna do that shit. They're gonna want me to do this, they're gonna want to do that. We're not gonna get along, there's gonna be arguments. So you firmly establish your root, and are like, this is who I am, these are my limits. I will not get along with these people. I will get along with these people, which can be a dangerous mentality, bear in mind. But you have a way better understanding of who you are as a person. Just that sort of thing. Whereas if you're younger, you don't have that because you just haven't had the opportunity to have it yet. You haven't gone through enough shit. Like, life has maybe been kind of crazy, but it hasn't been that crazy. There's a difference between teenage anxiety and real fucked up anxiety of my life might be ruined tomorrow because I might lose the entire basis of my career or something. Like, imagine a Patreon closed tomorrow or something. And it's like, oh, you can't make money anymore. You're done. Like, you're just done. There's no way for you to have a career ever again until someone else just so happens to open up shop on something that has the exact same formatting. If something like that happened, then I would have lots of anxiety. It would not feel good. And that's a very different anxiety from, oh, this girl that I know nothing about, but I think is physically attractive, wouldn't talk to me, or I said something kind of silly to her, and now I feel dumb. Like, oh, the anxiety, it's racking me. What will I do? That sort of like teenage anxiety, it's fucking nothing. Like whenever you get older, you look back on it, it's like, wow, that was really stupid that I even gave a shit about that. How come I just didn't move on to the next person I could talk to? There's so many instances of that. And as you get older and older, that keeps happening. Or even something like if Patreon closed tomorrow, I probably tomorrow would be like, shit, how do I deal with this? How do I deal with this? But in 20 years' time, I would look back at that and go, well, I could have just done this. Like, who cares? Like, that's not a problem at all. So I imagine that's what that will probably happen to me eventually. Probably. So there's different kinds of anxiety, and the more experience that you get, and the more crazy stuff that you go through, the more hardened you are to bullshit, and the less you're going to give a damn about the various things that life is trying to throw at you. Like, it's trying desperately to overwhelm you with, oh, you should worry about this. And you can look back at it and go, whatever. Like, that's nothing. You have jack shit on this. Like the best friends thing, I guess. I saw a lot of people were like very like teary-eyed and just like, oh, I can't sleep, like I'm filled with so much anxiety. Whereas like with them, I'm sure it's more like, can you imagine the anxiety they're going through? Because it's actually their job. Like that's actually what they have to do. So they're trying to work out exactly what to do in the future or whatever. Like imagine that compared to what you're going through of, I don't have my favorite thing to watch on YouTube anymore. And not to make light of your emotions or anything, but you can compare those two and realize how comparatively dumb your problem is compared to what their problems must be. Like, it's just one of those things. So, you can see sort of the solution of all these sorts of anxiety problems is usually just time, experience, and context. And the more you have of those, the more ridiculous a lot of these things become, as opposed to them being life-altering, crippling events. But unfortunately, you don't get to choose what kind of anxiety you get. There are some people that get what they call trigger words these days, or whatever. There are people that get triggered over like something very particular. And they don't get a choice in like the thing I was talking about, the lady that I worked with at the pizza thing. Like, horrible human being. And now whenever I see someone that looks sort of like that, really tightly pulled back hair, overweight, kind of stocky, argumentative, the image that I have in my head just now. I see someone like that and I'm like, ugh. Like, I don't get locked down and feel bad the rest of the day or anything like that, but that's sort of like a minor trigger for me, just seeing something like that. Or hearing someone screaming in that same sort of tone. Just because I have such bad associations with that. That's sort of like a minor trigger thing. What was I even saying? But that's sort of like a minor trigger thing. Oh, you don't get to decide whether or not that's the thing that's going to happen to you or not. You can tell yourself there's nothing to be worried about here. Like, there's no reason to have anxiety about this situation. And in your head, you can know that's true. You can look at the situation logically and know, yeah, there's nothing to actually be worried about. But your body will still freak out. If you've ever had an actual anxiety attack, there's lots of things that people don't talk about. Like, your body will sort of... The thing people don't talk about the most is probably the temperature change. Like, it can be... This happened to me, where it's been the middle of summer, and I will just be freezing, like shivering cold, because it's anxiety. And in this particular case, I knew it's something that was just nothing. Like, it was a nothing situation. And even logically, I was sitting there almost asking my body, like I was talking about Raha earlier and how she has synthetic thoughts in the opening, and how she knows that's not me, that's something that my brain chemistry is just doing on its own, and I had to deal with it. It's like that. Where I was sitting there thinking about it, knowing this is nothing. There's no reason for my body to feel this way. But my body's like, no, no, anxiety. And like, I'm separate from that in my own way, sort of evaluating it, looking at it, and going, what are you doing, body? Like, my body, what are you even doing right now? You're wasting all of my time that I could be using to do all these other awesome things, and you're fucking it up for no reason. And my brain is like sending messages to my body, stop doing that shit. This is nothing. This is absolutely nothing. And I know that 100% factual, it is nothing. But the body is just like, nah, because it's just a physical reaction, and you don't get a choice on the matter. It's just going to happen, and you just have to let it coast itself out, because baby needs this fucking medicine or whatever. And eventually it just kind of stops and goes away, and then your brain can like talk to your body again and say, okay, have you got that out of your system, dumbass? And your body's like, no, I guess. It's chemical. It's chemical, and that's all it is. And there are lots of situations that are like that. So you can get anxiety, you'll start shivering, and like your thoughts are all consuming on this one thing, and it just like drives you crazy, and you want that gone from your life, that sort of thing. And there's not an easy solution for it, unfortunately. You can't just switch it off. It's something that just takes time, and it takes more experiences, and it takes greater context to your life for that to just go away on its own, unfortunately. So it's not like a switch where you can just flip where it just stops. Like, even whenever I was going through that, I would wake up in the morning, like, well, I need to do this, I need to do this. And then my brain would be like, hey, remember this? And I would be, oh, don't start that now. And of course, immediately my body, like, I could feel my body like switching to like anxiety mode as soon as my brain was like, hey, remember this? Like, this waste of time. Just completely waste my time. I found, probably in my experience, one of the easiest ways of dealing with it is... I'll say it this way. Probably one of the easiest things to do is to find something comedic. I really like using comedy to trivialize it. Not like in my work or something. It's like watching something funny. Like, the more that you can get your body to get out of that association, because the more that you do have to address feelings. Like, if you're having a negative experience with something, if you try to avoid it completely, then it will just get worse over time. But if you address it on one hand, but don't let it completely consume your life, and then just move on, which is why I recommend like consuming media or something that is contrary to the feeling that you're having. Then I find it does help. It doesn't make it go away, obviously, but it does help. That's kind of how I dealt with it, I guess. But it's mostly just time. But in regards to like life changes, like, I imagine people, I've never had to go through a divorce or anything like that, but I imagine that people that have had to go through that, it's way worse, because I found that whenever it's something external to you, it's a very different experience, isn't it? If it's something that is like part of your life, like this is something that I did, or this is something that was done to me, that's a very different experience than this is something that my friends are going through, or this is something that my parents are going through, and it is literally affecting me in these other ways. They're very different, aren't they? It depends on the context of the situation. But if it's something that's happening to you, it's more, what do I do? What have I done? Or how are other people going to react to this situation whenever they don't have the context that I do? And that's what sort of sends you into a panic. But if it's something like a divorce, if it's something like your friends are like screaming at one another over something or something like that, then you almost have a sort of a selfish way of looking at it. That can even can make you feel bad about yourself. Like, why am I looking at it this way? This is their issue. Where you're worrying about, well, what's going to happen to me now? Did I do something to cause this? Am I related to this in some way? Even though you know logically, well, of course you're not. I think that says a lot about how the human body works and how evolution has worked in the like human consciousness is that we're very self-involved creatures. We're very focused on ourselves. Like, how is this going to affect me? How is this going to affect my genetic lineage? Like, we're every organism is extremely self-centered when it comes down to it. Humans evolved to be communal, so we're very much concerned about whether or not it's going to affect the group up until it starts affecting you as an individual, which sort of makes like cultures, like especially like Asian cultures, more traditionally focused on the group rather than individuals. Like American culture is way more obsessed with self and like me, my thing, my accomplishments. How is it going to affect me, my legacy, my feelings, things like that. Whereas around the world, it's not that bad. We're probably the most individualistic culture in the world, and I think that does harm us in a lot of ways. Especially because in modern culture, we're becoming more and more detached from the world around us, so we're becoming much more isolated. And the more isolated that you become, the greater your problems can become. Like whenever I see someone going through troubles, like a close friend, this has happened recently. Uh, my best friend actually has had problems of his own in regards to his family and whatnot. Um, so I had this sort of feeling of, well, what do I do? Do I try to step in and take a more active role inside of his life and like just make sure that he's always connected to someone, or do I step away and just let them deal with it themselves? Because I think both of those approaches are right to some degree. Because you don't want the person to be completely isolated, but at the same time they also need to be alone enough to where they can organize their thoughts and self-evaluate, deal with the problem, contextualize it in their own head, and they just have the time and ability to process it on their own. So I think both of those things are a good idea. You should probably be doing both. You should give them the support that they need, but also keep your distance so that they can actually self-evaluate and actually process things and come to a better understanding of themselves. But at the same time, you should be able to give them enough support to where they can actually leverage their thoughts and their experiences against you to gain that understanding as well. So that's probably my advice in regards to that. Although I will mention I am not certainly educated in regards to psychology or anything like that. This is all just life experiences with Eli. So whenever it actually comes to actually dealing with your experiences, the best advice would be to actually seek professional help. Not in the course of, like, seek professional help. But actually, like, if someone knows about this stuff, ask them about it. Because they're going to know about it a lot better than I will. So if you are dealing, and we have the final picture here, by the way, but if you're dealing with your own sort of personal stuff, you're depressed or whatever's going on with you, then life experiences from Eli would say to self-evaluate, contextualize, be aware that it's going to take a while for it to get through. Make sure that you are aware that it is not only a problem, but it's also a chemical problem of your body to kind of just doing whatever it's going to do. And that eventually it will sort itself out. It's just going to take time. But to also approach it logically, but also be aware that in the context of approaching it logically, there's going to be a lot more chemical swarms of information that are going to try to interfere with that. The biggest problems are usually the ones that there are orders of problems. There are the ones that you can deal with. There are the ones that you can't deal with. The ones that you can't deal with aren't really worth worrying about because you can't do anything to them. The ones where you can do something about it sometimes are worth worrying about, but often they're so small that there's something that you could deal with very easily anyways. So just try to approach it from that context, I guess. I don't feel like that's very good advice, but I think more just the fact that you understand that it's not the end of the world is probably the best advice that I can give in regards to anything like that. So here we have Nen, who is calmed down and having a good time with Nan, just having herself a nice cocoa or whatever the hell she's doing. I don't know. Maybe she put some gasoline in there and she warmed it up. She's going to throw it on that fire, have herself a nice experience burning down the house. I don't know. But I'm going to get back to my animation work. You guys have yourselves a merry holiday season full of holidays that are non-specific, because we don't want it for anyone, all right? All right, so see you guys next time.